the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled are author Bill Boyarsky and Berlin-based photographer Semra Sevin. Political writer, columnist, and city editor at the LA Times for 30 years, Bill Boyarsky was born and raised in Northern California. He graduated from UC Berkeley. He went to elementary, junior high, and high school in San Leandro, but missed out on nursery school. But never mind, he says there were no nursery schools at the time. Right? What were you called?
I was a latchkey child.
Yeah, that went away, that word, right? So that didn't keep him from reporting, though, being a latchkey child. No. He went on this reporting team that won 3 Pulitzers. In addition to the heavy workload at the LA Times, he's written several books. I think the secret may be the help from your wife, Nancy.
That helped quite a bit. Quite a bit.
Let's start with Ronald Reagan. Did you write 2 biographies?
Yeah, right.
How do you write 2 biographies of one man?
Well, the first one I wrote when he was governor.
So it was really directly, just specifically.
Right, and it ended there. And then he was elected president.
Oh, so you had another book.
Yeah, right, which dealt with the presidential period.
Did you have access to him?
Well, I had quite a bit of access to him because I was a reporter in Sacramento for the Associated Press for 10 years. And during that time, he was elected governor. So I got to know him when he was running for governor, and while he was governor, I was.
And then when did you come to the Times? What
I
part
came
of
to the
his
Times.
was he in?
Well, I had he was still governor when
you came to the Times.
Yeah, but I still had a lot of contact with him. I interviewed him, and I wrote about things he was doing. So,
Yeah.
all the way.
I remember he had a connection. He was very good with the Times because I remember we were invited to a cocktail party, and he and Nancy were there. He was governor at that point, or maybe just getting ready to go back to Washington. So they did. He had this closeness, I think.
Well, I guess so. He didn't like a lot of the coverage, and he didn't like Conrad, the cartoonist, and. But he was, But he was smart.
He knew that he had to.
Well, he was a very affable. He had the knack that more politicians should have of seeing it was business, and
that's what I mean.
Not taking it personally.
Yeah, that's what I meant when he had to have a relationship with you, whether.
Right, it was business.
Whether he wanted to or not.
And he had grown up in the movie in the industry.
Exactly.
And he'd been dealing with reporters and columnists all of his life.
From Ronald Reagan, we jump to that book, or In Between, or Jesse Unruh, whichever way it goes, but 2 totally different characters.
Yeah, really, very much.
But did Jesse ever want to be president?
Well, I think he did, but I'm sure he did. But he knew that it was never in the cards. And by the time I got to know him, it was certainly not in the cards that he was going to rise to a certain level.
Tell us about Jesse Unruh.
Well, he was, as a personality, really more interesting to write about than Reagan, because Reagan was truly, as they say, he was what you saw, which is what you got. I mean, he wasn't deep.
Oh, I see.
I mean, Reagan was kind of like the guy next door who'd come over and help you fix your porch. Unruh, who also probably would come over and help you, and he'd be good at it because he was a good mechanic, but he was very complex and had a lot of anger. and he was very intelligent. He had a very interesting life in that, political life, his personal life, his family, his girlfriends. I mean, there was so much. There was so much to write about and to dig into. His policies.
His politics, though. Is that why you picked him in the first place, or not?
No, I picked him. Because I had known him.
I see.
When I was in Sacramento, I'd gotten to know him pretty well.
I see.
And actually, what happened was he died of prostate cancer when he was state treasurer. And
before that, he was another
He had been an
political.
assembly speaker.
Right.
He ran for governor against Reagan.
Right.
He ran for governor against Reagan. He was state treasurer when he became ill.
Yeah, that was what was so interesting, because he did run against Reagan.
Yeah.
And you had both of those characters.
Right, and I was able to write about a campaign where they were running
That was
against each
great.
other. That
Yeah.
was very good. That was very good. Yeah.
So, all that aside, you started writing about the LA Times. You've been there 30 years, over 30 years.
Well, I had this opportunity to write this book. I retired in 2001, and I finished my book on Unruh.
Oh, is that when you finished it?
Yeah, and then I was.
But then after, did you have all the notes and everything?
For what?
For Unruh? Had you done all your interviews and everything?
I had done everything. I had done my research. There was a lot of material in the state library. My wife, Nancy, and I had to go through all the Unruh archives, which were sort of in a mess. We went through that. There was a lot of research to do, and I had done that. And I was writing for a couple of websites, one called Truthdig, which is a
Truthdig, yeah.
it's a great left-wing website that I write for every week, and I write for another one called LA Observed,
I know
which
that
is
one, yeah.
very popular among media and political
Right.
types, and I write for the Jewish Journal of Los Angeles. So I was doing that.
So Inventing LA.
And so the publisher, Angel City Press, they asked me to do this book. It was to be done in conjunction with a film that was
That's what
coming out on PBS that had just been finished by this great filmmaker, Peter Jones. And Peter had done the film, and they wanted to publish a book that would come out at the same time.
Oh, they both came out,
At
like
the
Peter
same time.
Jones was on PBS, right?
Yeah, so my book came out at the same time, and I had access to a lot of the pictures he had gathered.
Oh.
And then we got a lot more from the LA library. And
But did you work with him at all?
I worked with him in a sense in that after I finished the book, he read the chapters. There was a lot of writing. It had to be much more than the movie.
Oh, exactly.
A movie is just a movie. I mean, a movie's a great way to tell a story.
Right, but you can
this
see
had
things.
But this had to be a book.
Yeah, you don't, yeah.
It had to be a book. And so he's a wonderful storyteller. And I thought that even as long as I had been writing, and as much as I had done, I learned things about writing from him, from
Really?
storytelling, about how to finish a chapter and to move on to the next one. I mean, there are a lot of, just in technique.
Yeah, but when you're writing a column, you have to finish that column,
Well-
and tomorrow you're writing another one, right?
Well, that's right. That's right.
But putting it all together as a book, maybe it's different. And was it supposed to coincide with what he had on the screen?
Was supposed to. It didn't exactly. It followed the same idea of telling the story of the paper through its publishers. But there was much more.
His was more the Chandlers.
Well,
wasn't
mine was telling it through the Chandlers too, and telling the story of this remarkable family, and dysfunctional family. And I really had the benefit. I thought what made this a really interesting book not are the pictures, but what made it interesting as a book was that he had access to many oral histories of Buff Chandler, the mother.
So you actually saw them speaking, or were they transcribed?
They were transcribed.
They were transcribed.
And they were in the film briefly. But I had these long oral histories with Norman Chandler and Buff Chandler interviewed together. And it was the interaction and things.
Did she take over in the interviews?
No.
She didn't
Oh,
take over.
no,
I wondered
you know,
if she would
no,
take
no,
over
no,
over Norman.
No, she would. She would say, well, I remember they were talking about the smog control legislation. Yeah. I remember we were driving to work and all of that, and he said, no, that's not how it happened.
He would take control?
Yeah, that's not how it happened, Buff.
Okay.
We were in the office.
I just wondered, because she took control of the women she was with all the time, so it was a different kind of thing.
She was a fearsome person.
Yes, she was.
She was.
I liked her very much. I'm in the Blue Ribbon that she started, which was this great thing to build the music center. And everyone had respect for her, but fear, I think, is what you said.
Well, I wasn't afraid of her, but I was sort of...
I always liked her, and she was always very nice to me. So go on.
Anyway, so I had these oral histories were quite remarkable. I had another really long oral history by Otis Chandler, which he had done for a biography. He was going to write a book, and he'd given this long oral history. The book was never written, but I had the oral history.
And he is the son
of
Buff and Norman.
Otis ends up as the final and sort of dramatic character in this story. It starts out with two pioneers, General Harrison Gray Otis and his wife, and they came to L.A. and they bought this little newspaper, and he put it together, the business guy, and she edited what they today would call the soft sections, the feature sections.
She did edit it?
And the paper had an incredible sensibility. Los Angeles at that time was a very Midwestern, it was settled by Midwestern Protestant people.
And that's where he came from, right?
And that's what they both were.
So we have a picture of General Harrison Gray Otis, and all those names were used down the line in the Chandler family, right?
I guess that's what they do in great families. I don't know.
We have Harrys and Otises.
And we still do today.
We still do today.
Yeah, and anyway, they started this paper, and it was very successful. And then this young man who worked for him, who was a young man named Harry Chandler, he was the circulation guy, and he was married and had a child. Well, tragically, or fortunately, his wife died, and he was able to marry one of General Otis's daughters.
Oh,
and
that
was how the dynasty
started.
So
we did have that picture of Buff and Norman in the office.
Yeah, did you see the picture of them when they were at Stanford, when they were courting?
I did, I saw
Well, that was so interesting because, you know, this General Harry Chandler made it a kind of a great business, and he was the land developer kind of guy. Norman was more reserved and very obedient to the family. And he met at Stanford this very pretty, beautiful young woman, and her name was Dorothy Buffums.
Buffums, and tell us about that background.
Now, there was a department store, 2 or 3 of them in the Long Beach area, named Buffums.
Right.
And the Buffums family were very rich. Well, not rich enough for the aristocratic Chandlers.
Oh, they didn't like that.
Even though this family was, 2 generations away from relative poverty, by the time that Norman started dating Dorothy, his sisters opposed the marriage.
Can you imagine?
Well, he defied the family, and they married and lived happily ever after. But that split, now you know how it is with families. Oh, and you know her. You knew her. Would she forget that?
Never.
Never, and she never did.
Fabulous story. You did learn great storytelling from Peter Jones, or maybe it's Bill Boyarsky's storytelling. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed this.
Thank you. And don't go away. Photographer Semra Sevin will be here. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Photographer Semra Sevin was born and raised in Berlin. She trained for 2.5 years in Hanover in the photography portion of her career, and then 5 years assisting a renowned photographer in Paris. Semra came to LA after that, and she studied film, and she worked at Sony International TV, went back to Berlin, and she's now made LA, Berlin, her sister city. She's in Los Angeles now, capturing the Los Angeles art scene and collaborating with renowned photographer Julian Wasser. Let's start with that program of working in Hanover. You went right out of high school into a working situation?
Yes, I did. It's a program that is combined with work in a company and going to school. It's something unique to Germany.
It's fabulous. You knew what you wanted to be.
Yes, I wanted to be a photographer when my brother bought me my first camera with 3 lenses when I was 17.
Oh, so you knew. And then you went right into that program.
Yes, exactly.
And then you went to Paris. Did the school send you to Paris, or how did you decide to do that?
The European Union gives grants to every European citizen that wants to work in another country and wants to gain more cultural and professional insight.
And you got that grant?
Yes, I got that grant.
And then how did you know where to go? Paris is a big city, a lot of photographers.
I know. I just went on an adventure, and through friends and through talking to various people, I met a woman at Viva agency. It's a model agency, and she knew a Swedish photographer who would only work with people from Sweden and Germany.
He was very particular.
Yes, he was very particular. Yeah, that was my luck.
And it was. And was he just doing fashion?
He was doing fashion and advertising photography.
So he had some commercial aspect of it.
Yeah.
What was the difference in that?
The difference in fashion and advertising?
In the photography.
Okay, so advertising is really for a client, and you have to do exactly what the client and the art director says. And in fashion, they employ you for a certain style, but at the same time, you are in between what the stylist wants and what you want. You can still negotiate and give input.
But the photographer brings the stylist in.
It's really the stylist who chooses the photographer and also the magazine.
Oh, I see. So the advertisers are the boss,
yes,
of course.
Exactly.
But they've chosen this photographer for his style.
Yes, exactly, they did. But at the same time, they can also print out an image that they have almost drawn or put together with other images to say this is exactly what we want.
And then it comes out looking like his photograph, with their image. And what kind of style? Well, let's talk about the photographer you worked with. What was his name?
Blas Wettersworth, and I also worked for Adat after. And on freelance, I worked for various different photographers. I was on the set of Dominic Isserman, and I worked with Bharat Sikka, an Indian photographer, one of the only ones who was actually flown into Europe to work there for Vogue and various advertising clients. Yeah.
And what was the style, let's say, of the Swedish, who only wanted someone from Germany? First of all, why?
Yes, because he thinks that we smoke less at work.
Because the French are always smoking, right?
Yes, exactly. And he didn't want the ashes in the photos or on the cameras.
Oh, he was very particular.
Yes. And
the Swedes were okay.
Yes. They were very okay. They're pretty health-oriented, and the Germans too. And also, his style is in a way Swedish because it's very natural. and his photos are very warm. They have a very warm color, and the women are never don't have too much makeup or too much hairdo. But at the same time, it was his style because it was very classy. He had the way to look at women in a very classy way. I like that a lot.
And then did that influence you on your work when you were doing your own photography?
There was one moment that really influenced me a lot. That was when I was assisting him on a job overseas. Then at some point he said, you just have to follow your gut feeling. And that really helped me, yes. Following your gut feeling when you make photos. Mm-hmm.
Was there a competition between the photographers in Paris? Because we always think of Paris as like the germination or the livelihood of photographers, like the best photographers come from there.
Some of the best photographers go there.
Oh, they go there
Yes,
too.
exactly.
Ah.
Mm-hmm. It's like a melting pot. Like New York, a lot of cultures go there. Paris is really the melting pot for photographers, as is London and New York. Yes.
There was the cream of the crop there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
What were you doing? Were you loading film? Because they were using film then, I guess, when you started.
Because I did the photography training program, I could do various things, and that's, I think, why I survived there in that city, because it's not so easy to survive financially as an assistant, especially when you come from out of town. So I did digital printing. I also did analog printing. Analog printing, I did managing of the studio, I did load film, I also loaded digital bags. I had to learn how to work with any camera that exists and any strobe system that exists.
Did they teach you that, or did you know a lot of that before you got there?
I knew a lot of it, but you have to be very quick when you do it, and that's what I learned there.
To be quick?
Yes.
And what's the difference? You're loading film and loading a digital back. What is that?
The difference is that you have to think in a different way. With the digital bag, it's important to really clean everything out and be very precise with how you put it together, because there are these digital connections. And you're not so manual, you're more really careful and very clean, and you also have to connect the computer with the camera and upload and download those things, know about hard drives. And
so all that
yes.
goes, that's a whole different kind of photography.
It is,
than when
yes.
you're loading film. Do photographers still use film?
Yes, they do. Some of the photographers are really known to use film or even big Polaroids.
Oh, they still use them?
Yes, yeah.
Because those were really beautiful.
Yes.
But I know you work with digital, right?
I do both. With this work with the mirrors, I do use digital because I do so many photos and I am in different countries. It's too much work to find the right lab, and it's also too expensive when I photograph 40 people in one country.
Okay, let's talk about doing 40 people in one country. Where have you done 40 people in one country?
In Berlin.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
But you know your way around Berlin.
Yes, I do. I haven't lived there, though, for 8 years in Germany, because I left for Paris and for Los Angeles to study film here.
And then when you studied film, did that help you also as a photographer? You didn't want to be a filmmaker, did you? Or are you?
I am looking into being a producer, yes, later. But right now I'm doing my photo series, but I'm interested in producing, yes.
And when you came, one of the photo series you did was with students at Santa Monica College.
Yes, yeah.
Tell us about that.
To me, it's important to find the common demeanor between different cultures and between different nationalities, and so I photographed these different nationalities at Santa Monica College. It's the most international college in America right now.
Right?
Yes, it is.
Did you research that?
Yes, I did.
Wow. So you had a big choice.
I did,
And you have some pictures. We're going to show the pictures that you did of those people.
Yes,
Talk
okay.
about this one girl.
The girl, which one?
The one?
With the Chinese one?
Yes.
Yes. I found her on a theater project at Santa Monica College, and approached her and asked if she would like to be on this series, and she said yes. So I got hair and makeup for the whole shoot, and I got the equipment, and I got about 10 girls from 10 different countries who were also playing with the gum because they were making these bubbles, and to me that's the common demeanor, that actually the world is one bubble and we all have something in common, we just have to find it.
So you put them all together and they did different things with gum.
Yes.
Okay, then earlier we talked about commercial and advertising and fashion. What is the difference between commercial and art photography? What do you call yourself?
I can do both because I finance my art with my commercial photography.
I see. So commercial is something that's sold, and art is something like this
Both
that you put together? Or creative?
Yes, this
or
is
like
creative.
the Santa Monica students, creative in that way?
I think commercial is commercial because the idea came from somebody else, and
I see. And then the other project that you're doing in Los Angeles is Los Angeles artists.
Yes, exactly.
And you've been into what studios?
I was in the studio of Billy L. Bankston.
Tell us a little bit about that.
It's a very low-key building that he lives in, and when you come inside, it's like the whole world opens up. His place is not compartmented in the studio where he does his art and in living space. The living space and the studio really go one into the other because he has so much art in his living space.
And he has a lot of his own art and other people's art too.
Exactly. That was something very beautiful to see. It was like a gallery, like a high-end gallery.
And it was mostly his friends, people that he respects.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. You went into the studio of Joe Good.
I did go into the studio of Joe Good, which was beautiful. He has 2 huge spaces with high ceilings and a nice garden, and his house it's adjacent to it.
And tell me who else?
I had Ed Moses.
Oh, tell us about Ed Moses. You said that was interesting, all outside.
Yes, Ed Moses is a prolific artist, I would say. He's really producing a lot. I can see works all over in his backyard. He has a gallery space with a lot of work hung up, and he's really producing a lot right now. It was impressive.
He uses the yard. He paints outside, right?
Exactly. He uses his yard. And
what happens when you come in with a camera, say to Ed Moses, who has canvases all over the backyard? Does he say, go ahead and shoot them? They're not finished yet.
It's about environmental shooting, about what it is like, because there was work in process and there was also finished work, and there was him with his finished work and the work in process.
I see.
Yes.
Do they, when you come into an artist studio, do they tell you what you can do and what you can't do?
It really is a personality question, and I adapt to the people, because it's about, to me, life is about being what is possible.
Well, you did this fantastic portrait of me, and you had everything set up. And tell us, you used the mirrors. Just very quickly tell us about the mirror situation.
I set up your work, the work that has been done about you around. This is Don Bacardi, David Hockney, and maybe you can help me with these names.
Rupert Smith from an Andy Warhol photograph. And this one is a little...
exactly. Even the dollars has been made by somebody else, and this is the mirror that I placed in between.
So there's a mirror here, right in the middle.
Yes, exactly. Right in the middle of the work, yeah. That is my work.
Mark Schilder, down here, was a photographer. And this is your work.
That's my work.
This whole piece is your work.
The whole piece is my work, next to the work of all the other big artists. Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joan.
It was so interesting, and thanks for watching this part of the show. We're finished. Keep writing to JAQUINN1@AOL.com, and we'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles.